Connecting with an audience. How do you connect with your audience? That is the $1,000,000 question because once you learn how to connect with your audience, you can easily grow your audience. You can build your audience. I hate to say this word, but I'm going to say it for the lack of not having a word right on my lips. You can control your audience. So I can give you an idea of connecting with the audience if you're there in person. Part of connecting with your audience is, first and foremost, knowing who your audience is, right? So how do you connect with your audience? So I do spoken word. And when I go and perform spoken word, I perform spoken word in places where I know people enjoy spoken word. I ran into many rappers who don't respect spoken word. And spoken word is just basically an expressive way, in my opinion, to recite a poem or share a short story. It's just expressive. It's not rapping. It's not necessarily done rhythmically. So I go to places where I know that people enjoy spoken word. I'm not going to go to a comedy club and necessarily do spoken word. I'm not going to go to an R&B night where they don't, open mic and do spoken word. If I know people are there to hear music or people singing about love, I'm just not going to go there. I'm going to go where I know that people will receive me. So that's one way to successfully connect with your audience, is knowing where your audience is. The other way is you have to be a part of your audience. So it's kind of the same thing. If I'm trying to connect with an audience, before I connect with the audience, it's almost like I'm the person that's in the audience and I'm coming and I'm stepping out of the audience. I have to be a member of the audience in order to connect with my audience. So like I say, I will go to places where I know there are other spoken word artists, other poets, other people that do the type of work that I do, where I know that I will have some success or support in that lane. Now, it's a little bit different when you talk about connecting with the audience online, because that's tricky. You really sometimes don't know, like, how do I kind of gauge that? Because you're open to the world. You're open to everybody. So it's just trying to find your niche there. So how do you connect with an audience online? First and foremost, you create the atmosphere of who you are, right? You create the atmosphere. So if poetry is what you do, or spoken word is what you do, create what you do. Set your stage, right? And so those people are going to be drawn to you. There are going to be people that are not into you that are also going to be drawn to you. But they will come and they will leave. But those people that are drawn to you, how you set your stage is also going to help people to want to and learn to connect with you on that vein. Also, you have to think about your production value. So I'm talking more, again, I'm getting into the online side of things. You have to think about your production value. When people see you, what are they seeing? In this day and age, and I say this unfortunately, I say it like this, people are drawn to what looks nice and what looks pleasing to the eye. So if you're trying to really connect with people, you have to make sure that they want to look at you. I got a really hard lesson. I went to film school years ago, and I got a really hard lesson. I used one of my friends in a PSA assignment that I was supposed to do. And my teacher was looking at it, and she was like, "Who is this person?" And I said, "Oh, it's a friend of mine." And they were just like, "I don't want to look at them." And I was just like, "Oh, that's so rich." They're like, "No, they're not putting into the eye. Like, they're trying to sell me a product, but this person doesn't look. I don't want to look at them." And then their lesson to me was to go home and look at commercials. Like, do you see ugly people on commercials? Do you see people that are unattractive, trying to sell your product? You don't. And so even though that was a very harsh lesson from my teacher, it was true. It was true. And if you do see anyone on TV that is looking disheveled or not looking together, either it's a mistake or it's a reason. It's part of the production value or whatever they're trying to sell, but it makes sense. So again, when you're trying to connect with your audience, know what people are receiving. I'm going to be really transparent. I have a very, very large gap. I have a gap still, and I have always been in a leadership position. And so I would at times feel uncomfortable because I felt like it was difficult at times for people to receive from me because they are all in my esophagus. looking through my mouth. And so I was like, I got to get that fixed. I got to get it fixed so that they're not distracted by what I'm trying to either, share with them, what I'm trying to sell to them. I didn't want people to be distracted. So I took it upon myself, knowing the day and age and the world that we live in, I need to be able to connect with my audience and not distract my audience. And so I decided to do a little self-improvement, and I got my gap closed just a little bit. So those are some of the things you have to do. You have to make sure that you are looking presentable. You don't have to look perfect. Nobody's perfect, but don't turn your camera on and have, ashy skin, for, African American people and people of color, look the part. You need to put on a little makeup, put on a little makeup. You don't have to put on a full face, but make sure that people will be engaged and not distracted by what you are presenting, what you are wearing. I made an effort. This couch stays here. This chair stays here. But that doesn't stay here. So I got that. That's a little TV stand. I got that TV stand and I put that little lamp right there. It's like a little stand just to kind of boost up the production value, which is very simple. But I did what I could to try to boost up the production value so that it would be appealing. And hopefully it's not distracting, or hopefully it's not like, what is she? You can't please everybody. That's one thing. But, you don't want people to be distracted when they're watching you. So that's another thing. So again, connecting with your audience, know who your audience is, be a part of your audience. Don't be distracting. Know what is acceptable in this day and age that we're living in. Know that people are drawn to beauty. People are drawn to things that please their eye. And then what are you selling? The thing that you are selling, is it what, and I'm just saying, you might not be selling anything. You might just be a person that gives inspiration. But if you are selling anything, is it what your audience wants? And do you enjoy it? Enjoy what you are trying to sell your audience. Make sure that you are a number one biggest fan of your own product. If you are a cook and you're cooking things, I love seeing cooks who make their food, who show their food, and who eat their food and enjoy it. That is just like the icing on the cake. That lets me know that I believe what you're trying to sell to me, and that connects with me, because guess what? The food that you're telling me to prepare and to do all these things to, I'm going to have to eat. So I want to see you eat it as well. So make sure that people believe what you're selling, and make sure that you are also a fan of what you're trying to get your people to buy into or sell into. Again, because people want to believe. And going into belief, make sure that you are honest. People like transparency. I just shared something very vulnerable and transparent with you. And that is a way that you can connect with your audience, because then people see, oh, she's human. So you see these people on television, and I love seeing when people, like with makeup, when a woman or even a guy, they go from their plain face to making up their face. Showing your plain face is vulnerability, because again, we're living in a day and age where people are not trying to look imperfect at all, especially when they're on camera. But if you show a side of you where people can say, wow, this person is a normal human being, they're normal, they're human, it makes them feel like, I can connect with you. I believe you. I believe what you're saying. I believe what you're doing. And I want to, jump on board with you, whether it's to buy or whether it's just to receive inspiration, whatever you're giving. You also want to make sure that you're being authentic in what you're presenting. You are showing some vulnerability. I think sometimes people can be too vulnerable. And if you're too vulnerable, your audience will let you know they will not watch. If it's too much, they won't watch. So you also have to be mindful of that as well. So you have to know what people are receiving. This age that we're living in, it changes so quickly. And so you have to know what people are going after in the moment and what people are not, what people are turned on to. But the last thing that I wanted to share about connecting with an audience was casting out fear. Can't be afraid to do things that are out of the box. But in order to do that, you can't be afraid, right? So a lot of times people will go online and they'll see what everybody else is doing. And then they'll think of a way to do that and just kind of change it. It's almost like reading a book. You got a great recipe for maybe broccoli casserole, right? And it's just perfect, but it's somebody else's recipe. And so how do you make it your own? Well, you'll just add a little, maybe condensed milk. You wouldn't. Yeah, but I'm just saying. You will add a little condensed milk to give it a little sweetness, just a little, maybe a tablespoon or two into your broccoli casserole, and then boom, it's yours. You make it your own. But really, you don't really do anything. All you did was just took the 90% of what somebody else has already created, and then you added your 10% spin on, which is nothing wrong. It's nothing wrong with that. But that's what everybody's doing. Everybody's doing the same thing. So you have to not be afraid to be totally out of the box when you're trying to connect with your audience. But in order to be out of the box, because you got to be careful. Remember, I was telling you about vulnerability and how you don't want to be, too vulnerable, because then you can turn people off. When it comes to being out of the box, you really kind of gotta, by this time, you should know your audience, know what they like, but you have to do your research, see what everybody else is doing, and say, how can I do this? Just like I was saying with the recipe, how can I do this, but how can I do it in a way where it is like totally flipping it, and it's something that a large amount of people have not done. And when I say a large amount of people have not done, there's nothing new under the sun. If people are not doing it in 2023, they probably already did it in 2013. It just phased out. So there's always something that has been done, but a lot of people are not doing it at that moment. So do your research, but don't be afraid to be out of the box, because when you stand out, people's on it. They're like, wait a minute, whoa, this is new, So that would be my tidbit for connecting with an audience. So hopefully that helped. Again, my name is Kimberly Dewitt, and I hope that I helped to connect with an audience.